Good morning, everybody. Or if you're watching this in the afternoon, good afternoon. I'm just sitting outside, listening to the birds, and trying to swat away the swarms of little, they're called midges, apparently, my mother told me, but they're just like little things that look like mosquitoes, and they try to fly in your mouth, I swear. But, yeah, it's not a bad day out. And I'm excited for this week's First Chapter Friday because it's one of my favorite books, and it has been kind of up there for my favorites for like the last few years. But I personally really enjoy memoirs and true authentic stories of like trials and tribulation that we as humans can overcome. Just like some of the books I've read for these First Chapter Fridays, right? The Métis story, the North Korea story, they're all kind of memoirs of the struggle of life. But yeah, so this is called Educated by Tara Westover. If you've ever read The Glass Castle and you enjoyed that book, you're gonna love Educated. Like, it's really on point and parallels that book. It's similar. What else I like about this story is Tara Westover herself is only a few years older than me. So it's just so interesting for me to read and try and wrap my head around the fact that like our childhoods were so different, right? Like, I'm gonna be 29 in the fall and she's 33, so similar in age. So I just feel like more connected, I guess, when I read it. So yeah, it came out in 2018, so it's a really new story as well. And so her family is like survivalist Mormon, and so they aren't really like formally educated. Like, she only has like some memories of attending like real school. And her dad kind of develops like mental illness as he gets older, and he really is scared the government's like, he has all these delusions that the government's coming to get them. So they're very survivalist, live off the land. They have like the bunker. They're ready for the apocalypse, which, you know, whatever. But and then she decides like to persevere and like go to college and do all these things. And obviously she's an extremely successful person. So I just always find these stories so interesting, is like what intrinsically motivates somebody to want to do better when they don't have that in their life. Like, they have no concept of it, right? Like, what would motivate someone to like step outside their comfort zone, their circle? And I think that's so admirable, and to know that we can all do that. We can all step outside, even if it's something small. You don't have to do these big, like, momentous things, but you have the power to change your life at any time. And I think that a lack of action to better yourself is such a waste. Like, I'm a huge advocate for creating the best path you can for yourself, and like nothing should stand in the way of that. Anywho, enough of me rambling. So again, I'm using the Kindle. I actually lent this book to a student before COVID happened to read, and she's read it, and now she's taking good care of it at her house for me. All right. So I'm just going to read the prologue, but yeah, I highly encourage you to read this book. I'm standing on the red railway car that sits abandoned next to the barn. The wind soars, whipping my hair across my face and pushing a chill down the open neck of my shirt. The gales are strong and this close to the mountain, as if the peak itself is exhaling. Down below, the valley is peaceful, undisturbed. Meanwhile, our farm dances. The heavy coniferous trees sway slowly, while the sagebrush and thistles quiver, bowing before every puff and pocket of air. Oh, sorry. Behind me, a gentle hill slopes upward and stitches itself to the mountain base. If I look up, I can see the dark form of the Indian princess. The hill is paved with wild wheat. If the conifers and the sagebrush are soloists, the wheat field is a corps de ballet, each stem following all the rest in bursts of movement. A million ballerinas bending one after the other as great gales dent their golden heads. The shape of that dent lasts only a moment, as it is as close as anyone gets to seeing wind. Turning toward our house on the hillside, I see movements of a different kind. Tall shadows stiffly pushing through the currents. My brothers are awake, testing the weather. I imagine my mother at the stove hovering over bran pancakes. I picture my father hunched by the back door, lacing his steel-toed boots and threading his calloused hands into welding gloves. On the highway below, the school bus rolls past without stopping. I am only 7, but I understand that it is this fact, more than any other, that makes my family different. We don't go to school. Dad worries that the government will force us to go, but it can't because it doesn't know about us. 4 of my parents' 7 children don't have birth certificates. We have no medical records because we were born at home and have never seen a doctor or nurse. We have no school records because we've never set foot in a classroom. When I am 9, I will be issued a delayed certificate of birth, but at this moment, according to the state of Idaho and the federal government, I do not exist. Of course, I did exist. I had grown up preparing for the days of abomination, watching for the sun to darken, for the moon to drip as if with blood. I spent my summers borrowing peaches and my winters rotating supplies. When the world of men failed, my family would continue on, unaffected. I had been educated in the rhythms of the mountain, rhythms in which change was never fundamental, only cyclical. The same sun appeared each morning, swept over the valley, and dropped behind the peak. The snows that fell in winter always melted in the spring. Our lives were a cycle, the cycle of the day, the cycle of the seasons, circles of perpetual change that, when complete, meant nothing had changed at all. I believe my family was a part of this immortal pattern, that we were, in some sense, eternal. But eternity belonged only to the mountain. There's a story my father used to tell about the peak. She was a grand old thing, a cathedral of a mountain. The range had other mountains, taller, more imposing. But Buck's Peak was the most finely crafted. Its base spanned a mile, its dark form swelling out of the earth and rising into a flawless spire. From a distance, you could see the impression of a woman's body on the mountain face. Her legs formed of huge ravines, her hair a spray of pines fanning over the northern ridge. Her stance was commanding, one leg thrust forward in a powerful movement, more stride than step. My father called her the Indian Princess. She emerged each year when the snows began to melt, facing south, watching the buffalo return to the valley. Dad said the nomadic Indians had watched for her appearance as a sign of spring, as a signal the mountain was thawing, winter was over, and it was time to come home. All my father's stories were about our mountain, our valley, our jagged little patch of Idaho. He never told me what to do if I left the mountain, if I crossed oceans and continents and found myself in strange terrain where I could no longer search the horizon for the princess. He never told me how I'd know when it was time to come home. And then that's part 1. So kind of like alluding to the fact that she does like leave and go persevere and cannot lose the sight of the mountain. The imagery, right? The imagery in this book is so beautiful. Like it really, she consistently creates such an image in your mind as you read. And there's all these beautiful extended metaphors throughout the story too that I really like. So if you do read it, feel free to like email me about it and we can have a talk about it because I love talking about this book. I find it so interesting. And so yeah, that's a really short and sweet one this week. I hope you have a great day and a great weekend and do lots of summer reading and wear sunscreen. Okay, see you later.